What will happen if 3 months project turns into 6 months project?
A PA could only get a certain amount. They're never going to fight for the entire 30,000.
What kind of pushbacks do you get from insurance company?
There was a lady, she had 8 dogs, 2 iguanas, I think she had chickens too.
I have a very special guest on the channel today. Her name is Mila and she represents very unique service. If you're the contractor, please watch this interview. You will understand how you can look like a hero to your homeowners. And if you're the homeowner, maybe you lost your house or you cannot live in your house at the moment, watch how this service can help you. But first, I want to give huge shout out to sponsors of this channel, JobNimbus. JobNimbus is CRM for contractors, service that I've used in my roofing business for over 5 years. If you're a newer contractor on the market and you're looking for powerful but simple and not expensive CRM, look no more. JobNimbus is one of the best CRMs on the market. I'm gonna put a link to them in description below. JobNimbus, thank you for everything you do for us, for Roofing Insights, for helping us create amazing content. Now let's go and meet Millie.
Millie, if I'm sitting on an airplane next to you and we get to know each other and ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you answer?
It's a broad question, but I connect with people. I am a networker. I believe that your network is your net worth. And to me, what I do for a living is, well, I work for Black Diamond Housing Services, but in general, what I've done for the last 4 years of my career is connecting the pieces. Just getting to know people who obviously could generate business for myself, but I've been a very big referral source for other business partners.
Describe to me Black Diamond Services. What's ALE, Additional Living Expenses, what it stands for, how do people get it, and concept of the business?
Yeah, so ALE is a part of a homeowner's coverage. It's usually coverage D, sometimes it's C, and basically that coverage is allocated for temporary relocations, as well as just expenses that you would incur for like eating out, travel expenses. If you have pets and you can't find a temporary home to put them at, then you could also incur for pet boarding. And so basically what happens is the little catch of the carrier is you have this amount allotted to your coverage, but we can't just front it. So either the homeowner or somebody has to incur the cost, and then you're able to get reimbursed. Now, on probably very large percentage, most homeowners go out, they expense, and they look for temporary relocations, but they don't really know how to budget accordingly, right? Because a $30,000 ALE may seem like a lot, but when you're doing 6-7 months of repairs, it's not so much, especially with like how the housing market is these days. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have the right, knowledge and the right people on your side, you could blow through those $30,000 in 3 months, right? And you're eating out and you're not budgeting because you're just eating whatever you feel like, you could eat. So what Black Diamond does is we have housing experts as well as insurance adjusters that used to work for the carriers that understand how to best utilize this coverage and how to budget, as well as how to open coverage for ALE. Because a lot of the times, as you know, the carrier says, we don't feel that the home is unlivable, so we are not going to open up ALE coverage. So what Black Diamond does is we are able, with our knowledge, with our insurance background knowledge, we're able to say, no, these are the reasons why Mr. and Mrs. Smith need to move out. And it seems simple, but it's a lot more complex. But basically that's what Black Diamond does, is we open up coverage, and we really help also all parties involved in the claim as well.
Why someone would need a third party like that? Why is it so hard for a contractor, for the homeowner, to ask their insurance company themselves? Like, they cannot fight for themselves, or why? It's such a small niche.
Yes.
And it seems like you already have, public adjusters, you have lawyers, you have contractors who are not representing but working with the insurance company. And now we have another niche, another service. Right. Why such a big need for that?
So basically, with if you remove Black Diamond from this scenario, you're left with either the homeowner, like I said, fending for themselves, trying to find a property that's like kind of quality at a reasonable cost. You're also, the homeowner also lacks the knowledge on what repairs really take. Because as we all know, contractors can say, hey, this is going to take 2 months. But the reality...
Most remodeling projects always take longer.
Exactly. Okay. So the homeowner goes out there, budgets for 2 months, and probably gets a bigger house, or a house that's not within a reasonable cost. And so they're incurring this cost and now submitting the invoices to the carrier.
What happens in that case, in that scenario? So let's say, like earlier you mentioned, $30,000 LE. Is it like allowance? Is it a cap? Because what will happen if 3 months project turns into 6 months project? Can you double or extend the coverage?
So we'll never exceed the coverage that they have. So
what's typical coverage for?
Look at it this way: ALE is 10% of the entire policy. So whatever the total coverage of the policy is, it's 10% of that. So you have coverages that could be 20, 30, 40, 50. We've had $1 million coverage when it comes to like higher end homes.
So if your home worth $500,000, ALE typically will be $50,000.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so why PAs and contractors don't really mess with ALE is because I look at it this way: ALE belongs to the client. No, like a PA shouldn't be taking like a percentage of that, right? Because you're taking away from what essentially...
Because they're taking like 25%. Do PA do though? Do they mess with it?
Some do, some don't. And another thing why it's not always the best, unless it's a total loss, right? It's because a PA could only get a certain amount. They're never going to like fight for the entire $30,000, unless it goes into litigation and now you have to add it. But for most of the time, a PA could negotiate and get, let's say, out of the $50,000, they can get 10. But then out of the 10, they're taking a fee. So it's like they're really left with nothing. And in today's market, that's what's $10,000, right, for a housing option. So what we say is, if you utilize Black Diamond, view us as an added value. And basically, we want to be able to, one, take that burden off of the PA's plate, because now they can just focus on what's important. Okay. And the client's not constantly calling them and saying, hey, are we settling? Like, what's going on? And then on the contractor side is you're able to get in and get out, right? And do the job as quickly and as effectively as possible, because you're not working around the family. And so by removing the homeowner out of the home, the project and the claim really goes by quicker.
So you're making everybody's life easier, and you're not competing with a PA or a contract.
Exactly. So we're just...
So there's no conflict of interest at all?
Not at all. Yeah, if anything, we're just an additional resource.
Yep.
So we always say, you are the superhero in the story who referred them to us. Like, if they wouldn't have come to you, then and you didn't know about Black Diamond, we wouldn't have been able to assist them, right? So I always say, like, use this as a marketing tool. Because not only are you going to, do what you do as a PA or do the restoration, dry out, but now you have additional resources. And this is why I always say I like connecting people. I like connecting businesses, because if you have a seamless process and someone for every single service that really takes care and cares about your clients the way you do, then you have a network, right?
Well, and you're in all states?
Yes.
All 50 or 48?
Yeah.
49?
Yeah, nationwide.
There's always weird.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere but this.
Well, Hawaii, we're not, and Puerto Rico. But other than that, yes.
Tell me a good relocation story of your client, someone you work with, something happened and you helped them.
I have a lot of stories. It's funny because I was actually thinking about this question this morning. My favorite part of my job is connecting people, but at the same time connecting with the consumer as well. And when catastrophic storms happen, I deploy my team and we go out there and we have boots on the ground. And we're door knocking, we help people who are in distress. So for me, the best memories would be hurricanes, like post-hurricanes, because you see people and like that are helpless, you know, and their home is their life. We were recently in Louisiana, and as you know, the infrastructure is not the greatest. So their homes get really, really damaged. And there's so many stories from like delivering RVs, people crying, like.
Talk to me about RVs, because you buy your own RVs.
No.
Well, no, not RV, not buy. Tell me about your RV offers.
So basically, we use it year round, but most of the time it's a more feasible option when it comes to storms, because there's no power, there's no water, right?
Yep.
So that's like the best option. We don't own any of our RVs. We just have a network of RV vendors that work strictly with Black Diamond, because we keep them booked and busy throughout the year. And we
provide RV to the homeowners. How does that work? Like the whole process?
Yeah. So
I have a damage. You come, knock at my door. What do you say? How do you help me?
Well, the same questions that any post hurricane service would say is, has your home suffered any damages? If so, like, we tell them about our service. And usually when we go to these areas, we have wrapped vans. So they're always, they see what our company is, they see what we do. And so I introduce myself, I let them know like what we do. One of the things that really has helped us build that trust with clients in Louisiana is we've been on the news several times. So I just show them like, we're a legitimate company, because, during hurricanes, it's crazy.
Sure.
And so we go in and I basically get their information, get their insurance information to verify that there is coverage D. I explain to them what the coverage D entails and how we're going to be able to assist them. And as well as when we do that, we say, we have options, right? The best and quickest option is the RV. We can get an RV within 24 to 48 hours here. And so most of the time that's what they want, right? They want to get out of their home because it has mold, because they have storm created openings. And so once I get their information, I pass it on to my team. My team then calls them and does an intake questionnaire. And basically what those questions entail is, what's your household size? Do you guys have any pets? Any medical conditions? Are you wheelchair bound? Because if not, then we build ramps for them so that they can get into the RVs, and our RVs are ADA approved, certified. And once they go through that whole process, we speak to the carrier. And since it's hurricanes, like, it moves very quickly. The carriers don't really rebuttal too much, because they got hit with a hurricane, so they're very fair when it comes to opening up the coverage.
So it's easier to file a claim after the hurricane versus
like a water loss or a daily claim. And once that they go through all of that, then the RV gets delivered within a couple of days. And our RVs are pulled from different areas: Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Like we have them.
Where do you store them? Like by the driveway, somewhere close, or? So if we're able to have water access, then we put it in their driveway, and then if we can connect to the sewer line, then we connect the RV to the sewer line. Otherwise, we come out and we service them. So we have a servicing company that goes out and service all of our RVs. Do you have competition? Is there more companies doing it?
Yes. Most of our competitions are geared towards the carrier. So they work as preferred vendorships. At this moment where we are in our career and as a company, it's not that we don't want to work with the carrier. It's just we don't want to work with the carrier on their terms. Because at the end of the day, when we came into this space, we wanted to do what is right. And what is right is, taking care of the homeowner. And if we were to work with the carriers, then now we're basically working on their terms. And that's not necessarily always fair.
So you see insurance companies being unreasonable often?
Oh yeah.
And do you feel like the other vendors, they have to give in and they're not doing what's fair to the homeowner, but what's in the interest of insurance companies?
It's crazy. Even one of the things that we would come across in Louisiana is, we're not opening up on the instances that they didn't open up coverage, they would say, no, it's due to a flood and not windstorm. And I'm like, yeah, there was a flood, but there was also like there's a storm created openings in the roof. Like the flood just did that. Like how is that possible? You know, so they're always going to fight. They as we all know, they don't want to pay, but my team is relentless. Like they will be on the phone talking to whoever the desk examiner is or the supervisor.
What leverage do you have when they do say no? Like in that case, if they're arguing the flood, I mean, no is a no. How do you make them? Do you sue them? Do you get lawyers involved? Like what leverage do you have?
So with ALE, they have to open up coverage from the beginning. So if we won't ever, I mean, we'll make executive decisions certain times whenever we say the liability is clear. Like for sure, we need to just take this step moving towards housing this client because the damages are clear. But most of the time, it's a matter of speaking to the supervisor and pushing through and saying, hey, I have pictures. Because when we're on the grounds during hurricane season, we're taking pictures of the home. We're taking pictures of all the damages. And so basically, how can you tell me that this home is livable when we have proof? So whatever we need to do to escalate it, to speak to the supervisors, we will. And then in an instance where we've already put out money and now they want to negotiate our bills, yeah, if we need to get attorneys involved, we will.
Name the weirdest thing the insurance company paid for on ALE, like some weird, I don't know, weird coverage, a weird request. Because people are weird, right? They have weird pets, weird.
Yeah, so there was a lady, she had 8 dogs, 2 iguanas, and I think she had chickens too.
It's a zoo.
Pretty much, yeah. And they paid for it because for her, she was an ex-veteran, and so for her, these were emotional support animals, all of them. Wow. And so they paid.
And how do they pay for something like that? And where do you put lady with 8 dogs and 2 iguanas? And
see, I am so glad that I do what I do in the company and I don't have to do that part. But my team is crazy. Like there was another instance where there was another lady with like tons of dogs, Super Bowl weekend Miami, and everything is booked. And they make it work. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. Like they're on the phone, they're speaking to their entire network of housing.
And with the dogs, like so many people, Airbnbs and hotels are not allowed, to have dogs.
So this is why during our intake we like to ask questions and kind of get to know who our clients are. In this situation with this lady, she was an ex-veteran, so we're like, this is an ex-veteran, and like we tried to put whatever could help us kind of find more compassion. I mean, people are
easy to say no.
Exactly. So if it's all about how the delivery, right? And my team is really great at delivering and finessing their way through.
So where did you put that? Do you remember where you put that?
It was an Airbnb. Yeah, It was an Airbnb, and they allowed it.
Does insurance pay when there's a suspicion of wrongdoing by the homeowner, like for example of arson, or if the homeowner did it? Because sometimes, especially in arson cases and stuff, insurance will file an investigation.
Oh yeah.
Who did it? How does ALE coverage comes into play when something like that?
So we're very good at, again, speaking to the carrier prior to us expensing anything. Before we say, okay, we'll definitely house you, they go through the questionnaire, they go through the intake, right? Then we speak to the carrier and we get a little bit of more details on the claim. During that time, desk examiners usually will share their thoughts or say, this is going under investigation.
But you're not going to know right away. So, for example, in case of arson.
Yeah. In a situation like that, if we were unable to get any kind of intel prior to, and we house them, then we take the hit.
Have it happened?
It has, not a lot, but it has. And this is why we wait for coverage determination most of the time prior to anything taking place.
If that would happen, so you don't get paid, or homeowner have to reimburse you?
No. We just take the loss.
You take the loss.
Yeah, because they've signed an assignment of benefits. So now it's our responsibility. Now coverage D is our responsibility, and that's why like we're very picky about our underwriting process, making sure that we're not skipping any steps. And sometimes like when there's clear liability, we'll take that executive decision. But most of the time, we'll take our time and make sure that we do our due diligence to make sure that we're funding a legitimate claim.
How hard it is to get insurance companies to pay, not after hurricane, but like everyday losses? Like how long does it take to work with unreasonable company? If they start saying no, is it a couple days, couple weeks? Is it a long fight, 6 months?
So if they approve the ALE and now we're negotiating payment, from that moment on, from like getting our check and reimbursements, I would probably say on a difficult claim, 90 to 120 days. But then, as you know, like every claim is different. And there's been instances where we haven't even housed the client yet. We just got the client today. 3 days later, the check was being mailed. So it's all over. It's across the board. Like there isn't a certain time frame, but like, Citizens perhaps is like longer, like 90, 120 days. And Universal, how they do the global settlements too, so they push it out a little bit more. But on average, we're getting paid within like 30 to 45 days.
The best insurance company to work with when it comes to ALEs?
Progressive is really good. Progressive. We like Universal. Most people don't. We get paid. It depends. If the bills are a little higher, they'll push us out. But Progressive is very good, and USAA also as well.
Is most of your business down south, like Florida, or?
I would say Florida is our home state. Louisiana is the second. Growing Georgia, the Carolinas. We get random like Washington, New York, but mainly our main like bread and butter is Florida and Louisiana.
Do you see an unreasonable use of ALE, like when people trying to take advantage and trying to push it? Like how often does that happen?
So I think although we love our clients, I think most clients in their head, they think ALE is just like, I don't know, daddy's credit card. Right? And
I can see that.
And for us, it's like, listen, this is how much you have. It seems like a lot right now, but in the long term, it's not. No, I don't want it. I want to go stay at the Ritz-Carlton. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have that kind of budget, right? So, but my team is really good.
What do you do in something like that? So when let's say they think they have $50,000 to spend and they want to spend 2 weeks somewhere luxurious, and you're like, no, let's stay 2 months somewhere at Hilton.
Yeah.
So how do you have that conversation? How do you because is it their choice or is it your choice?
It's not. So it's not about. It's a combination. So the policy reads like, kind, and quality.
Perfect.
So if we're doing a comparative market research on your house specifically, right? If we put your house on Airbnb, and a night at your house could be $300, right? $300. I'm not going to pay $1,000 a night. It just doesn't. It's not reasonable. So that's when we have this conversation. We say like, kind, and quality.
But they do ask for it, right?
Oh yeah, not a lot.
Sure.
But because they're in such distress that they just want to get out. But it happens. Yeah, you get the clients that they want a vacation out of this, and you have to tell them like the reality isn't that. We want to be able to. As much as we want you to be at the Ritz-Carlton, we want to be a help and not hurt you in the long term. So if you want us to be in the long haul, if you want it to be housed until your home is repaired so that you don't have to max out your ALE and then we leave you hanging for you to figure it out and continue to pocket out on your expense, you need to allow us and you need to trust us. So my team is really, really good at communicating with the clients and letting them know and setting realistic expectations.
I think I know answer to this question, but is there, generally speaking, time they allow to stay? Because every job obviously is different. But it might take a year or two to rebuild the house, especially after hurricane. So is it just a budget, or is there, how does that work?
So two things that we could do. One is we can break up the ALE into pieces, right? So like, let's say at the very beginning, they have no power, no water, but the home is, or a certain area of the home is livable, and we don't want to max it out. Once they restore power and water, then they can move back to the home, and then we move them out during the repairs, right? And the build back and all of that, because that's uncomfortable. So we could do that. In instances where there's just, the home is uninhabitable, and I mean, your coverage is your coverage, we just tell them, like, we won't be able to house you for a year. We'll be able to house you for 6 months.
I'm just curious, what's happening in cases like California fires, when neighborhoods are gone, like people not even starting rebuilding them anytime soon? They either have to buy a house, or what happens with those people, and how long do they stay, and what they stay? And did you deal with the California fires?
We've dealt with a few fires. The thing with, when it comes to fires, the insurance carriers are very reasonable. Well, I don't want to say very, but I feel like they're a little bit more compassionate, understanding that they've lost everything. So ALE, in that sense, they'll take care of it. The insurance carrier will take care of it themselves. And usually we'll say, hey, we're going to book you a hotel. Obviously, that's not comfortable, because that's a long time in a hotel room. But in instances like that, we say, okay, you could either continue to go with your insurance carrier and live in this hotel, or we can budget up to this amount, right? And when it's like a deemed uninhabitable, total loss, usually they're paying out the coverage. So
like the whole house,
exactly,
$500,000, whatever, and then you lose your ALE after that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Give me a very crazy story. Like, I know you have stories. I want to see like some, just pick one. That one was crazy.
Okay.
Take your time.
So my very first hurricane storm, I had no idea what I was doing. I just went out to Louisiana, and I was like, we'll figure it out. And we set up command centers, and these command centers are like 10 by 20 tents. Just kind of like Allstate, when there's like a hurricane, their insurance, but a lot smaller and a lot more humble. And I didn't know, it was Lake Charles. I didn't know the area, but I was like, okay, this seems like it's a busy area. There's a Walmart, there's a Home Depot. This is it. So I negotiated with a gas station owner, and I was like, hey, how can I just park my tent here? And he's like, yeah, okay, no problem. We negotiated, whatever. I hired locals. First day, they all showed up. Second day, they showed up. Third day, nobody was there. I was like, I have to build this thing by myself. Then I hired more people. And as we're setting up for the day, I come to find out that there's like a bunch of gunshots. And I was like, this is my first storm. And I'm like, and I'm not carrying anything. And next thing you know, I've never taken down a tent so fast in my life like we did that day. So that is like the craziest story that I've lived through. It's just, when you're out in storms, I realize that it's not always so safe, and people are not always so nice. So now we're a little bit more cautious.
What kind of deals do you have with the hotels, like in your network? Is it a special discounts, or how do you work with the hotels?
Yeah, so we have discounts with Marriott and Hilton, and we're able to book extended. The longer we book them for, the more the discount is. It's more of a corporate discount, but better. And that's how we're able to house them. And usually we choose hotels that have like kitchens, like kitchenettes and stuff, so that they can cook as well. That way we lower the cost of them having to eat out all the time.
What about Airbnbs? Because it's private sector. Do you have deals with Airbnbs, or I don't think you can.
No.
Because of it's private sector.
Yeah, so what we did when we first started is we started creating a book of landlords. So we met them through Airbnb, but then we said, hey, let's go ahead, and since this is going to be a continuous service that we're going to need, your house could be a part of our network and we can negotiate a better price without having to pay the third party companies like VRBO, Airbnb. So we've been able to build a vast network of housing options for our clients throughout all Florida, Louisiana, and then in the scenarios where we have to go out of state and we may not be as, a common area for us to service, we'll try to deal with the landlord directly so that we don't have to book through Airbnb.
How does Black Diamond get paid?
So we have a service fee. Our fee can range anywhere from $300 to $2,500. $2,500 is like long-term housing, like year plus, high-end homes, because it's harder to find those types of homes. But on average, our fee could range from like $500 to $800.
That's pretty reasonable. Is it per case? I mean, that does not seem like a lot or enough.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but that's why we're more of a quantity versus making. We don't want to buy houses from one claim,
Do you have any pushback? I mean, with those fees,
No.
I can see how insurance companies are okay with it, I guess.
Yeah, they're very much okay with it because it's not a lot. So and it's very clear in our invoice. It says overhead, service fee, Black Diamond service fee, and like I said, usually it's $500 to $800.
Who decides that house is unlivable? And how often is there arguments between carrier and the contractor and the homeowner? Because I remember in my contracting days, like we have a lady, tree fell on her house and she was claiming there's mold and she's sick and we could not find mold. I mean, it was 2 days, after the rain, just normal amount of moisture. I mean, you can measure and stuff like that, but she was, going after us essentially that we didn't do something, we didn't tarp it right, and now she smells the mold. She's gonna sue us. I'm like, lady, you were just crazy. But anyway, but her insurance company, I think, moved her out right away. I'm like, okay.
So
what's unlivable?
So
definition?
unlivable could be no access to the kitchen. If they can't cook in their kitchen,
Okay.
that's unlivable. If they don't have access to hot water, they may have water but not hot water.
They can camp in the backyard.
I mean, they
like
can.
the cave days.
So if they have running water but they don't have hot water, that's unlivable. If they don't
Americans are so spoiled.
it's true. I mean, it's true.
Go somewhere south and tell people that your house is unlivable without hot water, and you're entitled for that.
When you have like the water heater, like I'm from Argentina, and I would shower at my grandma's house, and then the water heater would go off. I'm like, no. So
unlivable.
Unlivable.
Let's get insurance
This
involved.
is covered, Grandma. So basically, if they don't have access to bathrooms, if they're ripping out a very large part of like their common areas, if they have medical issues, if they have respiratory issues, and even though you have a contained area, you have AC and the AC is running and that's circulating throughout the house. If they can provide us like a letter of the doctor that says, hey, I can't live in these circumstances due to my health, that helps us deem it uninhabitable. And the damage could be minor, but if it affects them in their health due to their health conditions, then it's uninhabitable.
Okay, what else?
So I think like the word of uninhabitable is vague, right? I think what we should say is it livable, right? Is it comfortable? Was it there pre-loss?
Mm-hmm.
Was I living under these circumstances pre-loss? And so like a simple dry out, if you have running fans, there's two things that happen, or two things that go on. They're loud, or the homeowner is going to turn it off. That delays the entire claim. So what I like to say, especially like after the pandemic, a lot of people are working from home and they need to live in a home that's comfortable and that they're able to work through it. So we say, okay, if you have running fans, and usually fans take maybe 7 days, if you need to move out for that period, we'll move you out, and then we'll move you back in. If there needs to be continuous work after that, then we'll keep you out the entire time. But if it's a simple dry out, we can move them out as well.
What kind of pushbacks do you get from insurance companies? Give me a few rejections, that you hear often.
I would say one is windstorm's not covered, right, on their policy. But if you read the policy, it is. I think like
What do you do in a scenario like that? Because you're not a PA. Can you discuss the policy?
Well, I can't, but my team can because they're insurance adjusters. So they're able to speak on policies. They know how to dissect a policy. They're able to.
So Black Diamonds is insurance adjuster firm?
No. We just hire IAs so that for that reason they can discuss insurance language. When a desk examiner says, no, this is not covered under their policy, yeah, you could lie to somebody who doesn't know or understand, but they're insurance adjusters and they're able to discuss those policy coverages and dissect it and fight for, the right thing. So I think coverage coverage determination is a big thing, as well as what came first, the egg or the chicken kind of deal. Like, okay, there's mold, but we don't cover mold, but it was due to water damage or it was due to a storm-created opening. So I think that those are the biggest rebuttals that we get. And this is why it's important to have people who understand, have been out on the field from the other side, and they're able to, really speak their language, negotiate, and open up coverage.
So is Black Diamonds a supplement company, essentially? Or what makes you not a supplement company?
So what we view ourselves as is we're a financial firm, right? Our service is capital. When we've been in business for 12 years, doing property almost 5, but before that we did personal injury advances. So we have the insurance background or the insurance experience, and we are a source to the consumer, but also business partners.
Let's circle back to the beginning when you were talking about vendors who work directly with insurance companies. So generally speaking, is insurance companies have best interest of client or their financial interest? And when you deal with them, what do you see? And describe to me one more time the difference between insurance vendors and someone like you, and why a homeowner would pick you over them.
So, first question, they obviously look out for their financial gains and not their clients, which they should. And working as a vendor, as a preferred vendor, yes, you get the influx. And that's why a lot of people want to work with the carrier, because you get the quantity. You get the 100 calls a week if needed. You get all those claims. But one, you're working on their terms. You have to house them when they say that they're ready to be housed. You have to pull out whenever they say that you have to terminate their housing contracts. And so for us, it's not how we do business. It's never been. Even in the personal injury side, we've always advocated for the plaintiff. And that's what we do. We don't mind going after the insurance carriers. They're a multi-billion-dollar industry. And they keep getting richer, while in reality, you're supposed to look out for the people that pay their premiums every year, every month. And for us, it just doesn't make sense. If it was reasonable, then yes, we would love to work with preferred vendors. But when you're offering to give me a bunch of work and then you can't even pay a $500 service fee, and you cut that down to $100, but then on top of that, you ask me to do things that are unethical and they're not right for the client and the insured and their family during a time of distress, we're not interested.
Give one advice to the homeowners who just have damage to their house and something is happening, mold, water, like drying, they're in the process to recover. Give them advice.
I would say document everything. Take tons of pictures. How I like to view it is, a picture should tell a story. So instead of he said, she said, take pictures, show all the damages, document all of the damages that are being done, and then contact, a company, contact the restoration company, contact the public adjuster. And that's what we do. We've been able to, like I said, build a network of trusted vendors, and whether it's a catastrophic storm or a certain state, I get calls and they're like, hey, who do you recommend? Who's a restoration company that I can trust? Who's the public adjuster that I can trust? Who's an attorney? And so if that call comes to me or comes to our company, it always comes back to me, and I'm able to, give them trusted sources. So I would say have pictures, take tons of pictures, and have a trusted network. Know that what we like to do is, now we're in hurricane season, so we send out these like what to do preparedness checklists and like who to call, and it prepares them. So that's what we've been doing for everyone and anyone that we've ever housed. Every year during hurricane season, we send them out these letters, and we basically give them a step-by-step, like have your policy in hand. If you have a digital copy, make sure you have it accessible, because when the hurricane hits and there's no power, you have that. I would just say keep your insurance information close by, document, make sure that you're saving contacts under hurricane, right? If there's a housing, put housing hurricane, public adjuster hurricane, have contacts on your phone that you could just dial that call, and you're going to be taken care of. So be prepared.
What's next for Black Diamonds? What other services you're offering or planning to offer?
So a little, I would say under 6 months, we started purchasing invoices, because again, we're a capital company, and we want to be viewed as a solution in all areas. And so when I speak to people or business owners, I always ask them, like, what is your biggest struggle? And I came across mold assessors and plumbers who do leak detections, and they were like, cash flow issues, because usually those are smaller companies. And I said, okay, so if there was a solution and you were able to sell your invoices, would you? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Because why? One, they either don't understand how to deal with the insurance carriers. They don't have the time to follow up, because as we all know, collecting is, you need to be on the phone 24/7. And they don't have that. So Black Diamond has ventured into now purchasing those invoices. We talk to mold assessors and leak detection companies and say, hey, if you're not working with insurance, you can scale your business. You can now target insurance work, and we'll walk you through the whole process. We'll give you the right training on how to pitch.
If they have an insurance claim and the insurance company owes them money, so they have AR receivables, you give them money for a fee, I guess, and then you later get money back from insurance company. So you can
Correct.
Wait.
Correct.
And you offer it in all states as well?
Yes.
Like to all contractors?
Yes.
So it's not regulated? Like, how does that business work, and how do you, I guess, is it completely different division of Black Diamonds? Is it?
I would say it's just a new venture, right, of Black Diamond.
New service.
A new service. And what we do is, we're in the entire country. There are certain states that we don't want to really mess with because of the AOB laws. And we ask them that they do utilize an AOB, because it's easier to collect on that. And worst case scenario, we litigate it. But we work with, like I said, the mold assessors and leak detections, and whether they have old receivables that we'll take a look at.
What about roofers?
At the moment, we don't.
You don't work.
But, maybe.
Why not? What's so different about roofing?
So mold assessment receivables, they're very easy. They're black and white, right? What the client has to do is, if there is an issue, they have to detect it and mitigate it as quickly as they can. So if they detect mold, right, they call the mold assessor, and they already did their duty as their homeowner. So those invoices are easier to collect, right?
Because it's documented data, you have, report.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's black or white. There is or isn't, right? But either way, they did their job. They did they were responsible as homeowners who went and tested it in case of.
Okay.
And same thing with leak detection.
And the roofing is more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. It is. That doesn't mean that, it won't happen. It may happen in the future, near or far. As well as restoration. I get asked all the time. They're like, oh, do you guys buy restoration invoices? We would love to, but right now in our company, we like to perfect things before we just, dabble into many things. So I think we've done a really great job in the trajectory that we've gone through, and we're taking on this venture. We're, perfecting it. Everything needs to be every intricate detail needs to be tackled. And so before we get into something else, we want to perfect this side of the business. And for restoration or roofers, that means that we now need people who understand that business, that can look at an invoice and say, this is bogus, right? Like they're charging way too much, or that's not feasible. You don't need that many DHU fans in this square footage. So it's just having like the right people on staff, which we will eventually. For now.
Got it. Well, thank you for all you do. Amazing service. I'm going to put everything in description, contact information, and pinned comment as well. Contact Black Diamonds if you need relocation or assistance with the relocation in case of disaster or storms. I don't know. When nature strikes and you need to move out from your house, call Black Diamonds. Thank you so much, Millie.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.